Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is 4 o'clock, March 23rd, 2021, for our emergency meeting. I'm not officially calling it to order until we get a quorum. And as an FYI, when the meeting begins and you're not speaking, please mute so that we will prevent feedback. And hello, Nicholas, you just made a quorum. Thank you very much. So now this meeting is officially called to order. And as I was saying, welcome back. And then when you're not speaking, please mute to reduce the feedback. Ms. Cooper, are there any public comment guidelines that I need to give?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Okay, and any references to that, Madam Secretary will share with us some public comments that have come in since our last meeting. And this is an emergency meeting. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yes,
We'll
ma'am.
begin with Hilda Parlay.
Present.
Hilda Parlay is present. Marilyn Bonnet.
Present.
Marilyn Bonnet is present. Mark Marley is, I believe, not present at this time. Selena Gary is present.
Selena, Mark actually just joined.
Thank you. Mark Marley.
It's connecting, so by the time you complete everyone, he should be ready.
Nicholas Gorneau.
Present.
Nicholas Gorneau is present. Scott Dable.
Present.
Scott Dable is present. Willie Thompson.
Present.
Willie Thompson is present. Mark Marley.
He's still connecting to audio.
Okay. Mark Marley.
Present.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. That concludes the roll call for our board members. We do have a quorum. All members are present. I will now go with non-board members present. Brandy Gill, Principal Gill.
Aye, present.
Principal Gill is present. Khaditra Cooper.
Present.
Khaditra Cooper is present. And Donna Rasco, is Donna present?
Donna's present.
Thank you, Donna. Attorney Donna Rasco is present. Madam President, that concludes the roll call.
All righty, thank you very much, Madam Secretary and Board. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda. And it was noted in discussion items, it says update on legislative and SBE action. Maybe we would have had a better description, a more inclusive description. And Donna, you can confirm if this is okay. To say update on legislative and SBE action of reopening of schools.
That sounds more accurate.
Thank you very much. Any other additions or deletions? Well, if not, I move that we approve the agenda as amended to say in discussion item A, update on legislative and SBE action of reopening of schools. Do I get a second?
Mark will second.
Thank you very much. It has been moved by Hilda Parlay and seconded by Mark Marley that we approve the agenda as amended to say item 4, discussion items A, to read update on legislative and SBE activity of reopening of schools. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor, roll call, please.
Thank you. Hilda Parlay.
Approve.
Hilda Parlay approves. Marilyn Bonnet.
Approve.
Marilyn Bonnet approves. Mark Marley.
Mark approves.
Mark Marley approves. Selena Gary approves. Nicholas Gorneau.
Approves.
Nicholas Gorneau approves. Scott Dable.
Approves.
Scott Dable approves. And Willie Thompson.
Approved.
Willie Thompson approves. Madam President, we have a unanimous decision to amend the proposed agenda, item number 4, which is the discussion item to be recorded as update on legislative and SBE actions on reopening of schools.
Okay, thank you very much. And board. Now we're ready for that discussion. Attorney Rasco, would you like to lead us, please?
Certainly. I got to catch my breath first. The toolkit was updated today. It would appear probably about an hour ago. So we are all living way out there on that famous cutting edge. I guess I would briefly comment for background, and the very reason you guys are having this meeting is that there was legislation, I think on the 11th, Senate Bill 220, that sought to have folks go back more into in-person instruction for all grades, but for a variety of reasons, it was limited to local school administrative units, and that language does not, within our statutes, include charter schools. So there's been a healthy debate since then about what about charter schools, and guidance about going back to the toolkit and so forth. There is a bill pending 324 that would attempt to pull charter schools back into that same statutory language. But again, within the past hour, and I've not had a chance, I will confess to you, because I've been in other meetings to study it, but I can report to you, I am looking at least the cover page of the toolkit, which was revised effective today, which does allow K-12 in-person instruction, including for charter schools. And I'll stop there. I don't know if maybe someone else, including perhaps NHA, has any similar additional update or recommendation to the board.
This is Khaditra. Donna, I will say I got as far as you did as well, because I too was in meetings, and right before I logged on, I was notified of an update, but have not had the opportunity to look at the extent of that update. So pretty much what I can state as of now is that due to the information too that Donna had provided, that pretty much the reason that we're here today too is to discuss how I think it's the week after spring break, the board has decided to go into remote learning, which is Plan C for that week after spring break. So based upon all the legislative changes, just kind of revisit that conversation to see if maybe different actions should be taken, or if you're going to stay in the same, I guess, learning model. So that's pretty much the genesis of why we asked you to be here today to discuss that.
Well, thank you, Attorney Rasco and Ms. Cooper. So based on what Ms. Cooper just said, once we entertain discussion about whether we should, or by legal reasons, stay on Plan C after returning from spring break, what I'm understanding is that we would need to change that.
Correct.
And not to be able to be closed just because we're coming back from spring break. No doubt, children vacation, have family and friends come in from out of town or whatever the case may be. But from reading Superintendent's letter, Truist's letter, dated March 16th, that was in our material for today, it appears that we may have to change that. We may have to have an action item. But anyway, we need discussion. We need to hear from each board member, please, as to how you plan for us to go further, or what you understand the legislation to mean. So
Madam President.
Yes.
Madam President, this is Nicholas Cornell. I apologize if you hear wind in the background, but I'm going to try to be brief and to the point. I am outside, so but my understanding from what I've heard and read is that it might, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be 5 days a week returning back to school. And in our current model, it would be 4. And, I just would like a little clarity on that from anybody that can answer that question. And second, I agree with Madam President in that I believe we should be going back to school after all the new information that's come out and CDC recommendations. A lot's changed. We learn more and more on a daily basis, weekly basis. And I think it's important that we have this discussion now and get our students back into the classroom, especially now that we're hearing from medical experts that would be the right thing to do. So that's all I have at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Who's next?
Madam, it's Marilyn Bonnet.
Yes, Ms. Barnett.
We're in discussion. Is that correct? We're discussing. We're not voting. So I would be curious for a reply to Nick's comment before I make mine.
Madam President, this is Donna.
Yes.
If I may, if anybody's taken a look at the toolkit in the past, you'll know that much of the toolkit includes fairly specific guidance about specific topics, such as monitoring symptoms and things of that sort. There is a
Donna, I'm sorry. Can everyone mute their phones if you're not speaking?
Thank you for that reminder again, please.
Certainly, thank you. So if you look at the toolkit, there at the very front of the toolkit, there is a section referred to as current public health guidance. And this is where the updating usually occurs, which I would suggest to you is helpful. If you were to compare from document to document, from version to version, you'll see some of the core information stays the same. And I would suggest to you, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Even some of the chronological background information is helpful. But you work your way down and you can get to some of the critical new information. So if you go down to the third paragraph beginning recognizing, prior to this afternoon, those subparagraphs split out K-5, 612 remote learning. You'll see what we have now as of today is the description of what should happen with all of our kindergarten through 12th grade students. And the language is schools should return to in-person instruction to the fullest extent possible, up to 5 days a week. And beyond that, it's of course following the information that's in the toolkit and whatnot. So I think responsive to Nick's question is that the language is in-person instruction, fullest extent possible, up to 5 days per week.
Thank you, Attorney Rasco. And this too is part of the information that Khadija sent us. Well, actually, Attorney Rasco. Marilyn, did you want to make a comment now?
I still am interested to know whether we're talking about back to school 5 days or 4 after spring break. And I guess that the question would be about the Wednesday cleaning. Will that still be necessary, or have the guidelines changed to the extent that that is not necessary?
Well, it does say up to 5 days. So I interpreted that as we could keep our 4 to maintain that Wednesday for cleaning and for more focus. So I interpret it. Does anyone else interpret it differently?
Madam, it's Marilyn Bonnet.
Yes, Marilyn.
What I'm gathering is that there's a trend toward wanting 5 days, full face 5 days. There's a trend. And I'm hoping that teachers are feeling more comfortable. Would it be all right if I would ask Principal Gill to give us her take on how the faculty, staff and faculty are feeling about 5 days?
Thank you, Marilyn. Christopher Gill.
Yes. So to answer Ms. Bonnett's question, our staff would prefer to have our Wednesday cleanings. It is something that makes them feel safe about coming on campus.
Thank you for your answer. And the way it's phrased, it does leave the door open, I think, by saying up to 5. But I think the main thing we need to be concerned too is whether we are going to take action to change our motion from before to not say that our kids will not return the week after spring break and be only in Plan C, remote learning, the week after spring break. I think that's the essence of why we're here today.
Madam President, it's Scott. I do
Mr. Scott.
think,
Yes.
yeah, I apologize. I do think that we should also reconsider the 4 to 5 days week, right? Because as I read this to the fullest extent possible, right? Obviously up to 5 days a week. And I know we voted historically on 4, but based off of some of the feedback that's come in from parents, I do think that we should reconsider the Wednesday cleaning and even potentially look at coming back 5 days a week.
Thank you, Mr. Dable. And Principal Gill, how would that work? The cleaning would go on all night, each night, and on weekends? And would there be enough hours in between when school ended during the week for when it would open the next morning for all of the materials to be touchable, if you will? So how would that work? Cleaning
Yes.
overnight and on weekends?
So we would, if we lose our Wednesdays, we lose our sanitizing misting that we use on Wednesdays to help with the cleaning of the building. So we would still have our touch point cleaning and the regular day-to-day. It would just not be a deep clean until Fridays. And then, you know, over the weekend, the building would sit. So we would lose 1 day of deep cleaning if we go back 5 days a week.
Now, do they deep clean on Sunday as well?
They deep clean on Friday, and then some of them do come in on the weekend to do a deep clean on the Saturdays, and then the building sits until Monday.
Okay, so the building sits Sunday, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other comments, please?
So Madam
Yes,
President, so
Scott.
it's Scott again. So
Yes.
I think originally, I think when we voted on this, right, it was because we were in Plan B and we were talking about one group coming in, you know, cleansing during Wednesday, and then another group coming in Thursday and Friday, right? So we essentially had 2 groups. And I think if, you know, we're looking at 5 days a week, you no longer have that 2-group model, right? You have the same students coming in the same place at the same time, which is why I think we should reconsider.
Right, point well taken. Anyone else board?
This is Willie Thompson.
Yes, Mr. Thompson.
I'm understanding that the majority of the complaints came from the teachers on the Wednesday thing was that the students were not getting any instruction more than the fact that they weren't face to face. Is that correct?
Well, there have been, and Madam Secretary got an email about that. Some of the parents were wondering, well, you know, they're not really doing anything but busy work on Wednesdays. They get some more focus, and they were not aware, this particular one was not aware that Wednesdays were also set aside to clean as the moral focus was going on, and some of the teachers had office hours to be able to, you know, answer questions or help the kids.
Well, the question I would have, I guess, from the standpoint of the parents, is have the parents been informed totally of what we're actually doing on those Wednesdays? And are the teachers required to do part of the cleaning? Because that may be one of the things that the parents are not aware of. If the teachers have to be involved in the cleaning, then it's impossible for them to actually hold face-to-face learning, even remotely, and also clean their kids' workspace in order to keep them safe.
The parents have a schedule, and Principal Gill can talk more on that. They were given a schedule, and the Wednesday it was for Moral Focus Day, and for teachers to hold office time. So, Principal Gill, I don't think the teachers are involved in cleaning, are they? That's Aramark, right?
It's our Airmark service does the cleaning.
Yes.
On Wednesdays, our teachers do have a full schedule of, they start with Moral Focus. They hold small group sessions to meet individual student needs. They have office hours the rest of the day. Each teacher, because teacher schedules do fluctuate, each teacher has their schedule posted in their Google Classroom.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson and Principal Gill. Anyone else?
Madam President, this is Nicholas Corno again. Again, I'll be brief here. I believe the issue is not so much a lack of education of our parents. I think it's more that we all know that 5 days a week is so important for our students. I know Scott and I can talk on a personal note, but of how challenging that is, even the 1 day of, if it is safe for our students to go back to school, the 5 days a week is what we need to do. And I believe that's what's being portrayed here. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Cornell. And again, we're thinking about the week after winter break, not winter break, spring break.
Can I add this, Madam President?
Yes,
My
sir.
question would be to Principal Gill, why do the teachers need office hours during a remote Wednesday? And if I was a parent, and I've had the experience because I've had to do remote learning with my grandchildren, and like as some of the parents are really stating, I've noticed that on some of those Wednesdays, and not to be disrespectful to the teachers, it was almost like the teachers weren't really doing anything on Wednesdays except, having the office hours or whatever, so that the kids could come in individually and talk to them at one time. So the question I would say is that if we went to 5 days face-to-face, those teachers would not have office hours. That being said, why do they need office hours during remote days? Why can't they do a full remote day of teaching on those Wednesdays?
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Well taken. Go back to the old days when I was teaching. My office hours were at home. Times have changed, no doubt.
Madam President, this is Selena Gary. I have a question
Yes,
for
Gary.
Principal Gill. Principal Gill, when the deep cleaning is done on Wednesdays in schools, how long does it take for that cleaning to be done? Is it a full day? Do we have to wait after this spray is made for it to dry? The point I'm trying to get to is this something that could be done after school hours, say on a Wednesday evening, this deep cleaning?
Ms. Gary, I would have to check in with that. I know that recently our cleaning agent did change that the Airmark is using. And I would have to check in to see how long the new one sits. Beforehand, the misting spray did need to sit overnight. And they wanted it to sit for at least a couple hours before anyone came in contact with it. And so our building on Wednesday, we would only have it open for half day for teachers that were having internet issues and things like that. They would come up here for half of the day. But I do know that recently our cleaning agent has changed, so I could check into that and get back with the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. And it appears that our conversation is centered more around Wednesday than what we are going to do the week after spring break.
So, Madam President, I believe
Yes, Mr.
based off
David.
of what I'm reading, yeah, I believe based off of what I'm reading, it should be both. Like, I believe the board should be maybe voting on both of those today.
Understood. Thank you very much. Any more conversation, Mr. Mark? Attorney Rasco,
Yes, ma'am.
she's the other. Are we in a position now that you think, after hearing our comments, that we could vote on Wednesdays, as they will call Moral Wednesdays, or say to include 5 days a week, beginning the week after spring break?
So I guess my thoughts would include that you certainly want to convey that you want to continue, and I think of it, and I think it's maybe good phrasing, that we're still in the midst of reopening and that you want to continue your reopening consistent with the law and the guidance from state leaders, including DHHS. So that would be the most probably general sort of open-ended way of describing perhaps what the board might want to do. When it gets down to consistent with this guidance, indeed, as you all have pointed out, the language has been in the past and continues to be up to 5 days. I'm gonna throw out there that one option would be to lean more toward the more general guidance from the board and give your school administrator and NHA some flexibility. That would be one way to think about it. But other than that, I think you do have to be attentive to, and I think, and forgive me, I don't remember who was commenting on this, certainly the guidance and all of the information that I've been seeing even prior to the actual change in the toolkit today has been to encourage folks to provide in-person instruction, K-12, and I think there's a strong preference for to the fullest extent possible. And so there are certainly some folks who would interpret that to be, you know, we need to get everybody in the building all day, every day, 5 days a week as soon as possible. But the actual language does say up to 5 days a week.
Madam President, this is Mark. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Marley.
My apologies. I've been trying to talk to you for the last couple of minutes. So my thoughts are, I'm hearing the parents / board members indicate they feel like it's important to open as soon as possible, 5 days a week. The kids, if you listen to a lot of the folks that are talking points on the news, the kids need to be in school face to face with their teachers to learn. And then we listen to the letters that are written, the notices that came through our email box. I think it's important that we open as soon as possible with the ability to keep the facility as clean as we can. And I guess that's where I want to stand, because I think it is important we get our kids in front of our teachers.
Madam President, it's Marilyn Bonnet.
Mr. Bonnet.
I have a question and a comment. I'll do my comment first. And my comment is that I believe that we should discuss whether or not to continue to suggest no in-person learning the week after spring break. We should talk about that before we get to the action items, I believe. So that's my comment. My question is option C still going to be out there? If we make whatever decision we make, will there still be a choice for all at-home remote? Is that going to be a choice?
That is my understanding, that parents would still have that choice.
Madam President, I don't know
Yes.
if Ms. Cooper can display the current public health guidance document that we were looking at earlier, because I believe it's addressed in there. So we can actually see the latest language, which I think is consistent with what you just said.
Yeah, understood. We still have to give them a choice.
Can you see that?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
And to my understanding as well, the virtual select option is still available.
Yep.
Oh, Donna, what page? I'm sorry, would you like me to?
Current public health guidance, yeah, right under K through 12, I believe the remote learning option is referenced.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Mhm.
So it remains an option, yes.
Yes.
Madam President, it's Marilyn Bonnet.
Marilyn Bonnet.
Then is this a good time to discuss the topic of reopening or not after spring break?
I think so, if it pleases the board. So you
Yeah.
say,
Somebody's going to have to translate that.
mute, M-U-T-E. Well, I would be in favor of kids returning after the week after spring break. They've already been out of in-person learning for a while, and then our kids have their Wednesday off somewhat. So I'm leaning toward strongly that let them come on back after spring break with the option of Plan C for those parents who want to remain remote. Other comments, please.
Madam President.
So, Madam
just to
President.
clarify.
Scott, yes. Mr. Dable.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask maybe a clarifying question. So if we decided to come back the week after spring break for in-person learning, would remote learning be available for that week? Or would it be you select remote and you're on remote through the rest of the trimester?
Remote is at all times that you choose it.
Okay. So
Yes.
I guess I'll make my comment.
Okay.
I'm more in the favor of not returning post spring break because it's very difficult to control obviously what happens on spring break and people traveling, teachers and kids alike, and coming back. And I think the worst thing in the world would be, kids come back post spring break, they get back Sunday, they come in Monday, we have an event that forces us to close the school, right? So I think that 7 days is almost, kind of gives us the ability to quote unquote quarantine, if you will, and then come back to full-time learning the following week.
Thank you, Mr. Dable.
Madam
Attorney
President.
Russo. Yes, who's speaking?
This is Kaditra. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Based upon Scott's question, I just wanted Principal Gill to kind of confirm that if a student is, I guess, technically a Plan A student, even throughout their week, they still should be a Plan A student and can't be a Plan C student. Is that correct, Principal Gill?
So yes, our students, if for this trimester, if they chose in-person learning and they and then they want to do remote because of traveling, they typically just, let us know that they have traveled and we will try to support them. If that's the question. So if a student is in person, then they would stay in person after spring break.
Right. Yeah. So Principal Gill, that does answer the question. I was just thinking, it would influence if there were concerns about people coming back, if they had the opportunity to go remote for that 1 week, then I might look at it differently than if they were forced to come back.
So yes, our students can opt into if they travel, they can opt into the to remote. That does causes inconsistency with what's going on in the classroom, because some of our classrooms now are fully in person. And so that means now we're asking a teacher to switch up their learning model for those that are opting into remote the week after due to travel. And this is why we were hoping to keep that week after spring break as remote to support with anyone that wants to have those traveling plans so that it doesn't disrupt learning in the classroom for teachers to have to compensate for those that are in person and then her kids that have traveled that she now has to meet with remotely.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
This is Willie Thompson.
Yes, Mr. Thompson.
The question I have, I'm listening to this, I'm thinking that how long have we known that there was going to be a spring break? And obviously I know the answer to that because we've been knowing for a long time. So if the plan was a plan already in place that we were going to not have the kids meet a week after spring break already, then why do we need to change it? And then secondly, if we didn't already have that in place, if it wasn't already in place, why didn't we think about that before now?
Well, I guess Principal Gill can answer that better, but the board did vote that we were not, and it was based on what happened after winter break. If I recall, was to be consistent with that. The kids were not in person after the winter break. And I believe Principal Gill expressed that. And then the board, of course, voted that we should do the same thing for after spring break. But my question is to Attorney Rasco, based on the Superintendent Truitt and the legislators, are you getting the implication that we should not have kids at home after spring break?
So,
Is that a
yeah.
legal thing now? No, okay.
That's a great question. As we've already acknowledged earlier, we're dangling out here on the cutting edge with this, but you know, it is the board's responsibility to consider the latest information from the state, and you're doing that. I will say that all the information I have is that there is a strong push indeed to get everybody back in the classroom and to do so as soon as possible. So while clearly none of this guidance speaks directly to what are you supposed to do the week after spring break, I've certainly heard some comments and observations that it would not be consistent with this guidance to have a school fully remote the entire week after spring break. Now, that said, I've heard guidance from others who I would consider state leaders who have suggested that that would not be entirely unreasonable where that was your previous plan. So you could probably continue that schedule, but there is certainly a push toward changing even that plan.
Madam President, this is Nicholas Gorno again.
Yes.
I have a quick comment. Just a couple things. I believe we're in a different climate than we were after Christmas break compared to this break, with numbers coming back, more people being vaccinated. You know, I'm sure we're at a point where some of our teachers are already vaccinated. It's definitely a different climate than we were coming out of Christmas. And we've had, you know, just because of the protocol, we've had grades and classes that have had a positive and they've been fully remote for a long period of time. And then you add in spring break and then another week after that, you're talking a full month out of the classroom. And for those reasons, I would say that we need to get back right after that break. As was mentioned earlier, we've spent a lot of time already out of the classroom, and I think we need to get back as soon as we can, just like the recommendation had mentioned. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gorno. Point well taken. Point well taken. The climate has changed, and our numbers across the state are lowering, even though it's spiking just a tad. Mr. Thompson.
I think I agree with Nick. The only thing, the comment I would make is that as a board, we probably need to really be considerate of Principal Gill and her administration. And that what I mean is that whatever decision we make, we have to make sure that we're not handcuffing her to the standpoint that she is being given a task that she can't possibly perform, if that makes sense.
Madam, it's Marilyn Bonnet, and I agree with that. I believe that the principal needs to have, in her care and in her mind, everyone in her building, and that would include students and it would include teachers, and she is the one, I believe, who should make the decision. And Principal Gill, would it be okay to ask you which way you're leaning?
I will answer that if that's okay with everyone.
Please do.
And so I will say that we have about, I do not know, and we do not require parents tell us if they're going to travel over spring break, but I do have about 66% of my staff that is traveling over spring break. I do agree that I always say to my staff that your vacation time is your vacation time. So I want people to go and take a break from school. And if they're choosing to travel, it does create a little bit of an issue with us changing our game plan now, because we use the CDC guidelines that say quarantine after travel. And so for our teachers that have already made decisions and payments to travel, with us coming in now to change it, that does create a bit of a hurdle for us, and a safety concern with 66% of the staff traveling. So I would lean towards keeping our plan the way we had it, with the week of April 5th remote.
Thank you, Principal Gill. Attorney Rasco, would there be any repercussions legislatively if we did not change the plan to not return after spring break? Could we get in trouble?
It would be difficult for me to say there would be any repercussions legislatively, because as we just described, the latest that you're working from is the toolkit. The edits we're looking at are in the toolkit, although I would acknowledge that the analysis that has been used a good bit in the past week is that legislation is what takes you to the toolkit. So, there's certainly a legislative foundation. The most I could do right now is to remind you that the language is, to the fullest extent possible, up to 5 days a week. And as you can see, again, looking at that page, we keep going to the current public health guidance. They maintain the language about operational flexibility and planning for different scenarios, and the flexibility that schools have. So the guidance continues to maintain that language about flexibility. I cannot offer you any kind of guarantees or anything, although part of my thinking is much like other decisions that you and other boards have had to make in the past year. We are in the midst of a pandemic. Thankfully, there's certainly a lot of improvement lately, and hopefully good things on the horizon for everybody, but you are still dealing with a pandemic situation. So it would seem reasonable to me that you would indeed be allowed, as the guidance talks about, some flexibility. I will say that I don't know, well, one of your sister schools met earlier today. Oddly enough, they met before this guidance came out. And it was a public vote. They did vote to allow NHA and the school administration the authority to continue their reopening plan consistent with the law. So they went with that very open-ended decision, in part because they anticipated that some new decisions were on the horizon and they didn't know what they were earlier today. And so it's possible, and I don't know if Principal Gill knows any more about that from her colleague, or can or would even want to say anything about that, but it's a school that currently has a plan for remote learning the week after spring break. So they at least have some room to keep that in place.
Thank you, Attorney Rasco.
Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Cooper.
I just wanted you all to know too, I can share my screen, but I did reach out after after I was notified about the additional information that's been released to our government relations team. And she sent me an email that's kind of a bulleted synopsis of what is required and what's not required. And I can share my screen if you would like to see it really quickly.
Oh, yes, please do.
Madam President, Mrs. Mark, while she's doing
Yes,
that, I'm going
Mr.
to
Moon.
concur with others that I believe we've had a long break, and for those who have not taken advantage of that, should have. But I believe it is important that teachers get their time off, but I think it's equally important, as I stated earlier, for the kids to get back as soon as possible. So, but again, I got to trust Principal Gill to do what's right by both sides of that. So I will always defer to her intelligence and her skills that we hired her to perform for our school. And if I'd like to hear her opinion, what she'd like for us to do at some point.
Thank you, Mr. Marley. Keeping in mind the bottom decision lies with the board.
And this is just, like I said, a brief information. It just talks about what the toolkit now states, that K-12 students in traditional public schools and charter schools should return to in-person instruction to the fullest extent possible, up to 5 days per week, while following public health protocols in the Strong Schools NC toolkit, which is the same thing that Donna had shared. In addition, it says keep with the new guidance from CDC, the HHS has added recommendations regarding social distancing and minimizing exposure. Disclosure of close contacts and positive tests are still required. The toolkit also includes recommendations for schools about screening and diagnostic testing. What is no longer required: symptom screenings upon school entry, including temperature checks and disinfecting of playground structures. I can forward this to you all and you can click through the links if you would like after the meeting, but I just wanted to let you know what I received just not too long ago.
All righty, thank you very much. And this came from Linda Kakadakis, Coalition for Public Schools, one of our advocate organizations. Be good to attend some of the meetings too, remotely as they are now these days. So
Madam President, you muted yourself.
thank you very much. Just talking away. So now we're at a point of decision, unless you think you need to consider more discussion, even though more discussion can come within a motion if a motion is necessary. So now I'm hearing, let's get the kids back, based on the recommendation from the legislative folks and the state superintendent and some of us, get them back in school. There's proof that social distancing is not 6 feet for K-5. Middle school has already been doing its thing. And I'm also hearing that we don't necessarily need a Wednesday as it is set up now, even though the wording says up to 5 days. That would give us a little wiggle room to maybe stay with 4 days. But I'm hearing from points of view from 2 parents on this board that 5 days would be great to get the kids back. And then at another point, another parent stated not returning after spring break. So what are we going to do? We got to decide on something, one way or the other. Not saying there's a time crunch to do so, because we want to make sure we do what's right for all stakeholders. Yes, including teachers, principal, parents, the board, the state. We have a lot of people to be held accountable for. So now we got to narrow down to something. What are we going to do?
So, Madam President,
Mr. Scott, yes.
if I may, so Principal Gill kind of gave her perspective on the week after spring break. I don't believe we heard her perspective on, I mean, we kind of did on Wednesday, and if that is something that would be manageable if we return 5 days a week.
She can speak more, and then I asked a question about how cleaning would go 5 days a week. Principal Gill, you want to mention that again?
I mean, sorry, I heard the cleaning piece. I'm talking about from a resource perspective, from a teacher perspective, given the fact that there still has to be a remote option. Like, is that something that we could do? I'm not so concerned about the cleaning. I think the cleaning can be done over the weekend. Again, we got the same group of kids. So I'm more curious to know if we have the teacher resources to do that.
Okay, great. Principal Gill, thank you.
I want to make sure I understand the question. So the teacher resources for the April 5th week, if we were to enter back to school, is that what you're asking?
No, I think you've already given us your perspective on that based off of previous plans. I wanted to get your sense on moving to a 5-day school week versus 4. And from a teacher resource perspective, you spoke a little bit earlier about, we clean on Wednesdays, and that's the reason why we do 4 days a week today. But could you tell us that, if the board decided to go back to a 5-day school week, could you manage that from a teacher resource perspective?
So yes, that would not, that wouldn't change. So our teachers would run their schedules just as they do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They would be running a 5-day a week schedule. We would lose the personalized options for instruction that students would get during office hours, because you wouldn't have those options for your virtual kids to just drop in and speak with the teacher and get support from the teachers. And some of our students at some grade levels really do take advantage of that time. But as far as personnel, no, we would not need to make huge shifts from 4 to 5 days a week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Mrs. Thompson.
In listening to everything that's been discussed, I would be more inclined to say that we keep the schedule as it is as far as after spring break. And also what we would do, we would maybe allow Principal Gill time to accommodate, during the 5 days a week if possible, and maybe she could give us some insight as to what type of timeline she could commit to. The other thing that I remember from just looking at that, the question I would have is that one statement in there was saying that we did not need to sanitize the playground equipment. And that being said, my question would be, is that if you don't have to sanitize the playground equipment, are you still required to sanitize the classroom? Because maybe the sanitization in the classroom is not as critical as it was before.
Madam President, this is Donna.
Yes, Donna.
I would say to you that information is contained within the toolkit. And I have not had an opportunity to do a direct comparison, but I will begin to look at that a little more closely. But I will say to you that the answer is in the toolkit. There's a section specifically on cleaning and hygiene. And I don't know if you want to take the time, it's in the document that Ms. Cooper had up earlier.
Yes, Ms. Cooper, could you find that for us right quick, please?
But
Since
the
we're on it.
document,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
the
thank
document
you.
also used the phrase that, I think the first part of it is that we should. It didn't say that we had to, it said that we should. So that wasn't really definite saying that it definitely had to be done.
Well, and again, I would refer to the toolkit because I have found the toolkit does a pretty nice job of spelling out. It was the other document, Ms. Cooper, that you first had.
Okay.
That begins with the current public health guidance. They give you in fact, they have it beautifully color coded. They tell you what you're required to do, and then they tell you what is recommended. So under cleaning and hygiene.
All right. Donna, what page are you on so I can reference that page?
Well, in the old copy, it was page 13, the one that was accurate until this morning. It's probably somewhere near that same page 13.
There it is.
Cleaning and hygiene, there you go.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Yes.
All right.
All right, so if you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about the 8th block down, you start getting beyond hand washing type stuff. And there's reference to allowing time between activities for proper cleaning and disinfection using EPA approved disinfecting protocols, regularly clean and disinfect surfaces that are frequently touched. And all that language is the same. Well, actually, the one that begins regularly clean, they've modified that a little bit. Can't tell you yet exactly what's been changed, but they did modify it a little bit.
So Principal Gill, that would be done, let's say, when kids leave to go to specials or lunch or out to recess. Principal Gill?
So yes, the regular clean is happening throughout the day, and you are correct, Madam President. We do the wiping down of the high touch points in the building throughout the day. And our teachers do help with this type of cleaning between transitions. And as well as our specialist teachers, because they see every grade level, they are wiping down their classrooms. So instruction stops a few minutes early so that they can wipe down their areas before the next group comes in.
Okay, thank you. So we have to keep cleaning. It's not deep, but we have to keep cleaning throughout the day. Anything else? Anything else? And Attorney Vasco, this is in person for K-8, not just K-5, right?
K-12, actually.
I mean, you know, for us, it would be K-8.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And Plan C option still remains for those who want remote learning. So now we're back to whether we will return after spring break or not, and if we will go on a 5-day week. Is it time for the question?
Madam President?
Yes, Khadija. Ms. Cooper.
If you all would like, I pulled up the high touch point surfaces. I don't know if you guys just wanted to be aware of what they were. So I did pull up an NHA document that lists those areas as well.
Okay, why not? While you're on it, thanks.
All right. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yes, good size. Mm-hmm.
And like Principal Gill said a little earlier, the cleaning agent itself has changed. So I cannot confirm right now if this document reflects the changing to that cleaning agent she referenced.
So really, this list is no different, is it?
Then the one that's in the toolkit?
Yeah.
No, ma'am, it's pretty
It
much
just
similar,
spells it
but
out.
since it's NHA, I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of what was listed. And all high touch point areas are cleaned 3 times per day.
Okay, questions or comments about that? Mr. Thompson, I see your hand.
He's on. Mr. Thompson, you're on mute.
Oh, I got to take my hand down. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Are we ready for the question board?
Madam President, Madam President, this is Nicholas Gordon. I have one
Yes.
last question.
Mhm.
Now, Wake County Public Schools, will they be returning after vacation to go back full time, or is that still up to their discussion? I'm just curious from their perspective what they're planning on doing.
They just started in person yesterday, didn't they? Or this week?
My question's for like after their spring break. Is that
Mhm. I don't know.
Nick, I think they had a meeting yesterday, is what I was told on Friday, that their meeting was slated for March 22nd. I don't know the results of that meeting yet.
I just don't want to be, Madam President, quick comment. I just don't, I just have, concern of our school being out, not going to school while public schools are returning. That is just a perspective I just thought to bring up. So I don't know the answer to that, but that was a question I had.
I understand.
Madam President, this is Donna. As best I can tell, they did vote. Wake County Board did vote, I think it was Monday. I guess that was just yesterday, to bring back grades 6 through 12. I think they had already done K-5.
Mhm.
And the information I'm looking at says year-round students are going to return April 14, and traditional calendar students are going to return April 8.
Okay. So that April 8th is around the time that we would come back from spring break. Thank you. All right, board, what is your pleasure? Are we ready for a motion? And we'll have to state it quite definitively of what we're seeking to do here.
I'm not sure I'm going to run it correctly, so I'm going to do my best.
Thank you, Mark.
Madam President, I move that we open our school to begin 5-day face-to-face learning the week after spring break.
I will second that. Any more discussion?
Madam President, is there an opportunity to vote on those two items separately? Like we're linking them together now where it's a yay or a nay, but we may have some members that feel strongly about one but not the other.
I'll withdraw my motion, Madam President.
Right, Mr. Mark.
Madam President, I move that we begin 5-day-a-week Plan A instruction as soon as possible.
Is there a second?
Madam President, it's Scott. I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved by Mark Marley and seconded by Scott Dable that we move to Plan A for 5 days per week as soon as possible. Discussion.
This is Willie Thompson.
Mr. Thompson,
As soon as possible is very vague.
how would you define it?
That's what I'm saying. How do you define as soon as possible? I mean, that could be tomorrow, it could be next year.
Yeah, I'm saying, how would you define, how would you limit it? What would you say?
Madam President, this is Donna. If I understand, and I may not have, but if I understood the efforts of Mr. Marley and I guess Scott, I think.
Scott, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
It might be that you could further clarify that to say as soon as possible, but no later than. And perhaps your no later than is the week after spring break. But I would
Week after spring break.
And
clarify if that was your intent.
Yep, and Attorney Rasko, would it be appropriate, sorry, Mark.
No, I was going to say I'll withdraw that motion as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Can I get
that-
can I get
No
clarification
motion is on
on?
the table. No motion is on the table.
That's right. Can I get clarification on the week after, the Monday after spring break, or this next school day after spring break? What is that date?
It looks like it's April 5th, but Principal Gill, are you in school on April 5th? I know another school took that day off, so I want to confirm.
So we are in school. We resume school April 5th.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, and
Madam
Mr.
President.
Marley.
We'll try
Mr.
to.
before-
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Marley, before you make that motion,
Okay.
Attorney Rasko, would it be appropriate to make the motion on the return to school first and then the 5 days a week second? Because the first one will clarify the second one.
That would be reasonable.
So, Mr. Marley, can we do it that way?
God, go ahead. I'll second whatever you're recommending.
I'm not sure.
Somebody
So
help.
I want to go ahead. Yep, I want to go ahead and make a motion. That we return back to school the week of April 5th after spring break.
And what model?
Plan A.
Which grades? Now you gotta put the grades.
K through
Madam-
8.
K through 8, yes, okay.
Madam, it's Marilyn Barnett. Is it possible to clarify the motion by stating a date rather than during the week of?
You
This is not
said,
easy.
okay, let me try and repeat what he said. Scott
We have a
mentioned,
motion on the, we have a motion on the table, Madam President.
right, I'm trying to
so-
clarify the motion.
Madam President, let me,
Scott, would you
withdraw that.
clarify the motion?
yeah, so I want to make a motion that we return to school the week after spring break, starting April 5th, 2021, returning to Plan A for grades K through 8.
Madam President, Mr. Nicholas Cornell, I second that motion.
Okay. It was moved by Scott Dable and seconded by Nicholas Cornell that you made the motion to return to school after spring break, Plan A for grades K through 8, beginning April 5th. How was that? Discussion. 2021, of course. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor, please, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome.
Hilda Parlay.
Approves.
Hilda Parlay approves. Marilyn Bonnet.
Approve.
Marilyn Bonnet approves. Mark Marley.
Approves.
Mark Marley approves. Selena Gary approves. Nicholas Gorno.
Approves.
Nicholas Gorno approves. Scott Dable.
Approved.
Scott Dable approves. And Willie Thompson.
Approved.
Willie Thompson approves. Madam President, it looks like we have a unanimous decision of the board to approve the motion to return to school 5 days a week under Plan A for grades K through 8, beginning effective April 5th, 2021.
Well stated, Madam Secretary. Thank you, board. So that included everything we needed. So we don't need a second motion. All righty. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All righty. Any new business? Any new business? Anything for the next agenda?
Just to clarify, Madam President, so
Yes, Mr.
April
Dale.
5th, April 5th, 2021, 5 days a week?
Yes,
5 days a week.
Reported.
And Madam President, it's Marilyn. That was my question too. I did not hear 5 days a week in the motion as it was stated. May we hear the
Right.
motion one more time?
Okay,
I'll be glad to repeat it.
please do.
The motion was made by Scott Dable. And Scott, who seconded the motion?
Nicholas?
Nicholas,
Second by Nicholas Gorno. That we return to school 5 days a week under Plan A for grades K to 8, beginning April 5th, 2021.
Thank you.
all right, Scott, you were about to say something about either new business or the next agenda?
Well, I think based off of that motion, there's still a second motion that needs to be made on the 4 or 5 days per week.
Before spring break? Or the week after, rather?
The
Madam
week after, starting.
I'm a little confused here.
Madam President, this is Donna.
Yes,
My understanding, and again, we need to make sure everybody's on the same page, was that, you know, you guys worked to pin down the motion. I understood the motion to be to reopen Plan A after spring break, starting April 5th, 4K8, and that I thought you were intentionally leaving out the 4 or 5 days so that you could deal with that later.
That was
Madam
accurate.
President, I agree with Attorney Rasco. That was my understanding as well.
yeah, because that started with Mark's motion, and then Scott wanted to break it up, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay,
So-
so.
So Mark?
You're gonna put it off on me, okay. So, Mark would like to add a motion that we begin Plan A 5 days a week, with full instruction to begin April 12th for grades K through 12.
Well, that didn't concern us, but
Yeah, K through 8. I'm sorry. Yeah, 12. K through 8.
Attorney Rasco, we have 5 days in Scott's motion.
By my notes, you did not have 5 days in Scott's motion.
Okay, well, Selena reread it, and she put in 5 days.
She did add 5 days.
But it wasn't in the original motion.
Right, not in the original motion. Not even when I repeated it.
I thought I heard Mark say 5 days. I didn't make that up.
I think Mark said 5 days originally, but the motion that you ended up with that you were actually voting on was the motion made by Scott. And Scott's motion did not include the number of
5 days.
Okay, okay.
That's right. So go back and read that to make sure we have that correct.
Okay.
His did not.
Okay, the motion now would read motion to return to school 5 days a week.
Nope, take it out.
Take it out. Okay, so motion is to return to school under Plan A, grades K through 8, beginning April 5th, 2021.
Madam President, Madam President, this is Nicholas Gorn. I'm just a little confused because Plan A is returning back to the classroom.
Right, in person.
That's the way I understood it.
Yeah, but one thing about it, as opposed to Plan B or Plan C, and we didn't mention anything that Plan C would still be in force.
But does Plan A specify 5 days a week? It's in-person learning.
No, Plan A just specifies that it's in-person
In
learning.
person, exactly.
Right.
And
Right.
then you have to state the days, but just to clarify, I think what ended up happening was Mark started two motions and withdrew both of them. And then Scott started the motion. So Selena, I think that's where the disconnect of the 5 days may have come from. They were in both of Mark's withdrawn motions.
Mm-hmm.
Madam
Yeah.
President,
Attorney Rasco, help us out, please.
I agree with Ms. Cooper's last statement that by my notes, Mark started two motions and withdrew them.
Right.
Then Scott made a motion.
Yep.
Mhm.
That was the motion that was voted on. That motion was to reopen under Plan A after spring break, beginning April 5th for grades K through 8.
Right.
You had a second and you had a roll call vote and it was unanimously approved.
Mm-hmm.
It did not include the number of days. Plan A is described in the current guidance as up to 5 days per week. And my understanding is that that flexibility of up to 5 days a week is what the board was attempting to kind of hone in on. And so my notes show that Mark then made another motion that I believe was intended to capture the 5 days a week. And I heard him say his motion was to start the 5 days a week on April 12th.
That is
Right, that's
correct.
what I have in my notes. And then he said K8.
Well, yeah, he tried to throw in some extra grades, but yeah.
I'm trying to make sure I get this thing covered so we're all clear. So basically, I'm asking that we start 5 days a week, full instruction, face-to-face, to begin a week after spring break, after the spring break return.
Could we redo the motion again? Just so
Yep.
we're clear.
For clarification, the motion I've put forth is that we begin Plan A instruction 5 days a week.
Hold on. We begin Plan A instruction.
Face-to-face instruction, instruction. To begin April 12th, 2021, grades K through 8.
2021, grades K through 8.
Correct.
Okay, so let me read it back to you. You make a motion to begin Plan A instruction to begin April 12th, 2021 for grades K through 8.
5 days per week. That's the piece that's missing.
5 days per week. Okay. Would you like me to read it back again?
Yes, please, Madam Secretary.
The motion made by Mark Marley is to begin Plan A instruction April 12th, 2021 for grades K through 8, 5 days per week.
Madam President,
Yes, Attorney Rasco.
may I suggest a point of clarification? Again, my understanding was that Mr. Marley's most recent motion is intended to address the issue of the 5 days per week. I have some concern that it should not replace the earlier motion in as much as the board has already voted unanimously to approve it. So you have already voted unanimously
Mm-hmm.
to go to Plan A after spring break, beginning April 5th for K-8. So I would caution that another motion that says that you're going to start Plan A on April 12th might be confusing.
Yep.
And it is, because after beginning April 5th means just that day and every day after. So, Mr. Mark, would you like to withdraw that motion?
This is Willie Thompson.
Withdrawing it. Somebody else needs to put this thing together. Madam President, I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Thank you,
This is
Mr.
Willie
Mark.
Thompson. I got a question.
Yes.
If I'm missing something, correct me, but I'm under the understanding that we were already set up to go into remote learning after spring break, for a week after spring break, and then return back to the normal schedule as it was before we went into spring break. Is that correct?
But that plan was for Plan A for K-5.
Okay.
And we've just done away with that motion by the new motion.
Okay. Well, what I would say is that, do we need another motion? Because I guess I would think is that we continue as, rather than confuse things, as we keep things as they were until after spring break, which would mean that when we come back, we don't have to make a motion, because we're going to come back after spring break through K through 5 doing remote learning. So don't change that, but then go in, as Mark was stating, after, and then after spring break is over, then we look at what the plan is going to be after spring break is over. Therefore, we would only need one motion, because, we would say that, hey, he's going to go back on April the 12th, because we go in that week as it was before. In April 12th, we make plans to go in, I think what Donna was saying, go into full, the thing where we go into a full face-to-face, and we could go into up to 5 days. And and we would make sure that Principal Gill could pull that off.
But I thought what we agreed to was go face-to-face after spring break,
Full time.
April 5th.
Madam President,
We're going to do it.
Madam President, I think I know the confusion here, and I see if I can clear it up. I think the wording was the problem, when Scott made the motion, he said Plan A, and that meant to go back to school. But I don't know if he meant, and I don't want to speak for you, Scott, but I don't think you were meaning that was the getting back to in classroom learning was on April 5th. I think let me know if I'm wrong there, Scott, but I think that what maybe a way of clearing this up is making a motion to go 4 or 5 days a week first, and then when we wanted to start, I think that might have been the intent of it, but I think when you said Plan A, I assumed that it meant that we're going back to school April 5th in person. So
That's what it means. The motion has been voted on.
Madam President,
Yes, Attorney Rasco.
if I may, I was going to take a shot at what might be the remaining action.
Okay.
I would say to you that Plan A is in-person instruction, and the language that's used throughout the guidance and the statute is in-person instruction.
Mm-hmm.
So Plan A is in person. And again, I think you've already voted on reopening under Plan A, which would be in person after spring break, beginning April 5th,
Mm-hmm.
for K through 8.
Right.
The language that is in the guidance is the up to 5 days. So perhaps, if I'm understanding what I'm hearing correctly from the group, the remaining motion might be that your in-person Plan A model will include a full 5 days per week of instruction no later than April 12th.
Full day. That's
Attorney Rasco. Attorney Rasco,
Yes.
could it be stated as an amendment to the original motion?
I guess at this point, in an attempt to have some clarity, I might try to not amend the other motion since you motioned, you seconded, you voted, it was unanimous. That would just be my suggestion.
Yep, don't disagree. Thank you.
So Mark was on the right track, though, wasn't he? So should he make another motion and state what you just said, Donna?
Mark should not make another motion. I'm sorry.
Mark doesn't need to be moving anymore.
I am so sorry, Mark. I just couldn't resist that.
Hey, I'm good natured. I can handle it. Pick on me all you want.
Madam President,
Please.
this is Marilyn Bonnet. My
Okay.
notes indicate that Mark has made an appropriate motion. My notes indicate that he moves, we implement Plan A instruction 5 days a week, grades K through 8, beginning April 12th. That's what I have in my notes.
That's what I have too.
So in my view, the motion is accurate.
And it really does involve what Donna said. So now, are we ready?
So has it been seconded? May I second?
Yes. All right. It's been moved by Mark.
Get a motion through, yay!
Seconded by Marilyn Burnett that we go to Plan A 5 days per week, with Plan A model, 5 days a week in grades K-8, beginning April 21st. I'm sorry, April 12th, 2021.
Plan A, 5 days a week, beginning April 12th.
Right, 2021, grades K-8.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Not all those in favor, let's vote, Madam Secretary.
Okay. Hilda Parlay,
Approves.
Marilyn Bonnet,
Approve.
Mark Marley,
I guess I'll approve it.
Lady Gary approves, Nicholas Cornell,
Approves.
Nicholas Cornell approves, Scott Dable,
Approve.
Scott Dable approves, Willie Thompson,
I approve.
Willie Thompson approves. Madam President, it looks like we have a unanimous decision to return to Plan A 5 days a week, beginning April 12th, 2021, for grades K through 8.
All righty, thank you, board. Thank you, board, and Donna, and Khadija too. All right, public comment, since there are no other items for the next agenda.
Madam President, I'm
Yes.
sorry, this is Khadija. I just had one question. I know when we initially came into the meeting, we were kind of going to talk about K-5 as well as far as Plan A was concerned. But I just wanted to make sure, even for my notes, that I had kind of the feel of what opening back up the middle school is going to look like for Principal Gill.
Principal Gill.
Well, you guys have voted, so I will make it happen. It is going to be tricky because right now to have our kids in K-5, we are using some of the middle school classrooms to make our classrooms smaller. We only have about 26% of our staff vaccinated. So we will work hard to make that, everybody feel comfortable with coming back and opening up safely. Right now, with the number of kids in middle school, we have about roughly 10 in a classroom, at max 13, to keep 6 feet of social distancing because of the size of those students. But we will work to, and I understand that 6 feet is no longer the requirement. So we will work to make that transition as safe as possible for our kids to come back in middle school. That does, I entered this meeting thinking we were only talking about K-5, and it kind of spiraled down to middle school. So I am a person of action, so I will make sure that our middle school is back up and running as I understand it for April the 12th. It is going to be a sticky situation because I have to quickly turn around communication to parents and transition some rooms back to middle school rooms.
Thank you, Principal Gill. I guess the thing was that the legislators were talking K-12. So obviously we have a K-8 school, and that would have included K-8. All righty, so we are now down to announcements. Any announcements? If not, with no further business after such a productive emergency meeting, I move that we adjourn.
This is Nicholas Gorno. I second that motion.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been moved by Hilda Berlin, seconded by Nicholas Cornell, that we adjourn, being no further business. Any discussion about any other matter on the agenda? If not, all those in favor, Madam Secretary, roll call.
Thank you. Hilda Parlay.
Approves.
Hilda Parlay approves. Marilyn Bonnet.
Approve.
Marilyn Bonnet approves. Mark Marley.
Approves.
Mark Marley approves. Selena Gary approves. Nicholas Gorno.
Approves.
Nicholas Gorno approves. Scott Dable.
Approves.
Scott Dable approves. Willie Thompson.
Approved.
Willie Thompson approves. Madam President, we have a unanimous decision to adjourn the meeting, and the time is 5:32 p.m.
Thank you so much, Board. We really appreciate your time, your extra time and efforts in Principal Gill and Attorney Vasco and Khaditra. Be safe, everyone. Until the next time.
Madam President, may I add just a comment?
Yes.
I want it to be clearly known that this was a serious matter, and my jovialness was more to lighten up the air. Principal Gill, I hope that you can pull this together in a timely manner, and if we can assist in any way, I hope you'll let us know.
Thank you. I do. Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that. I'm still here. I will definitely let you guys know.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Stay
you.